Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at the Power Apps Test Studio. So here I'm in a solution which is named Power Platform Test Studio, but it could be called anything. And it contains a Canvas app. Again, could be any Canvas app. So I'm going to go into this and ensure that we're in edit mode. And as I say, you could go quite complex with this, but I just want to show a really simple example just so you can get a feel for the kind of things that you can use the Test Studio for. Just to call out, it is somewhat in preview, I believe, or at least it has a prerequisite of an experimental feature which is in preview. And when you come to use it for the first time, it will prompt you for this. But if you click on File, go to Settings, click on Upcoming Features, with the preview category selected, you'll notice the formula level error management. And I believe that is the one that has to be enabled. But like I say, if it's not enabled within your app and you come to use the Test Studio, it should prompt you to say it's ideal to have that turned on. With that being said, all I've got in this app is literally a radio input control with a simple table with two values, true, false, which gives us the two selectable options here. And all we're going to do is, in a scenario where you might want to test the value of something after performing an action, so the action in this case will be when I've selected true, does the value of the radio 1 input control reflect true? Equally, when I select false, is that value reflecting me selecting false? So that's going to be our simple test case. So to get into the Test Studio, we're going to click on kind of the spanner and screwdriver icon here. And this is also where you can access monitoring, which I'll do a video on at some point. But here we're going to open up tests by clicking on Open Tests. It's going to open a new tab. This new tab does have an affinity with the Power App you've got open. So you can get ultimately a play link for the Test Studio that you can just go to and test it. But in terms of launching this, if I were to try and make changes and this app would be closed, there will be a disconnect. So you want to keep that open. Just to kind of call out the hierarchy of this, you've got what are deemed as a test suite, which could contain one or multiple cases, and those cases can be referenced and run independently of each other. Above and beyond the actual test itself, if you either click on Test here or View in the top right-hand corner, you can set logic as to what happens when a test case starts, when a test case completes, which could be one of many, and then when the whole test suite completes. So things that you may want to do, and this is referenced in the Microsoft documentation, you may want to write back results to, say, a Dataverse table. So all I've done here, and you'll see in the example, when we come to play out the test, you'll just see a little notification of the information type that says starting test. So with that being said, let's walk through what we've got here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these steps and we'll walk through setting it up again. So you could do this yourself from scratch, enter in steps and sort the order and specify the action to take. But what you might find easier, certainly in this test case, is we're going to click the record button. It's going to launch the app for us. And we're now going to carry out the steps that we want to do tests against. So I want to test against us selecting true. I want to test against us selecting false. We've recorded the two steps there. I'm going to click done. Now, You will want to make sure you name these steps to something meaningful, but in our test case, I think it's quite logically named. So set radio 1 dot selected to true, set radio 1 dot selected to false. Okay, that's not really going to give us much, because what we need to really do is have a validation step after each of those recorded steps to say, yes, it was successfully set to true. Yes, it was successfully set to false. So that's where I'm going to add in a step manually. So I'm going to do insert step below. There are some kind of test studio specific functions, if you will, which you'll want to familiarize yourself with by way of the Microsoft documentation. But the key ones to call out really are assert and trace. In terms of set property, you can see that actually doing it by way of the recorder, we're setting properties, values, so radio 1 dot selected true and false. I originally, when I did this, I started to go down the route of an if statement. So if you can imagine, we'll basically go like, if radio 1 dot selected dot value equals true after that step as a success. But really what you want to do in this test scenario, for more of a, we're actually testing something here, did it happen, yes, no, is I'm going to do insert step below, and I'm going to use this assert. Now, the way I think to use this assert function is similar to an if. The first portion of this, we want to specify what are we checking. So we're testing the radio 1 dot select, and I like the fact that you can still get IntelliSense within the studio, where radio 1 dot selected value equals true. So we're basically saying, does it equal true? If yes, due to the nature of this function, it's going to count that as a pass. And you can see here it says verifies that the given expression is true, failing the test if this is not the case. So what I might do here is that if that was not the case, I'm going to do failed to successfully set radio 1 to true. This is complaining at me because, and if you ever get this, if you hover over the right portion, it'll tell you why. These types can't be compared. It's text, but I'm giving it the type error. Not sure if I said that the right way around, but anyway, we're going to provide it as a text value. Once that's happy, I'm also going to insert a similar one, except here we're going to say, are you now false? And if you're not false, then I'm going to say you failed to successfully set radio 1 to false. I'm going to rename the steps just to make them a bit more meaningful. So I'm going to put here radio 1 true check. And then for this one, we're just going to put radio 1 false check. So in this case, this should successfully pass, because we're essentially saying, set it to true. Are you true? Which should be yes. If you're not true, then send a message saying failed to successfully set radio 1 to true, and similar for the false. So it does take a little while to publish these sometimes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click play. It knows that there's a change that needs to be published. I'm going to click publish, and I'm going to pause here. So if it takes a while for this to ultimately publish, that's normal. So once published, it'll play through the steps, and here we can see we've got a nice sea of green, no issues. But where's the fun in that? Certainly when you come to learning the technology, the most fun part is when you actually get errors and you can make sense of them, and it will bolster up your app development process. So let's create a failure. So here I'm going to change this from false to true, and we know that the step above is to set it to false, so it won't be false, it'll be true, and it should fail. So again, I'm going to click on play. publish. I'll give it a few moments to just so you can see that on start notification happen. But if it looks like it's going to take too long, this bit, I'll pause it up again and come back once it's successfully gone through. Although I could put a delay on that information notification. There you go. I've talked it into submission. So you've got the little notification starting test just to prove that that happens at the start of the test. The first test is successful. The second one failed. So we've got assert failed, and it's given us our message, failed to successfully set radio 1 to false. And then the test failed at step, radio 1 false check with the following message, assert failed to successfully set radio 1 to false. So that's fantastic. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not earth-shattering, this test case, but if you imagine, you could be quite comprehensive here. And as I say, there's things that you can do when it completes. And what I'll do in a future video as well is I will basically look to automate this by way of an Azure DevOps pipeline, which is quite cool. And there's an open source GitHub project called Power Apps Test Automation, I believe, and that makes it easy. You just basically fill in your individual environment requirements and it does all of the hard work, basically. Finally, you can get a copy play link from a suite level. You can get a copy play link from a case level, and you get the copy play link here as well. If you copy it, paste it into the browser just to show, it's going to take this URL that someone can use to go to, and it's going to carry out those tests. And we can see it's set to false. I'll just close this down. So that's going to play the test out. But we've not got that studio view. So this is where, unless you've got it outputting the test results somewhere, this may be less useful. But I'll leave it there and I'll see you in a future video.